Share your screen.
I will share a screen or two. Probably just the one. All right. Welcome everybody to Civil Chat. My name is Brian. With me today is Brian, and with missing today is the other Brian. So he's not going to be able to join us today.
So we're only
Um,
Brian squared, not Brian cubed today.
all right. It's that Y that this was just throwing us all off. Um, so if you've not been with us to Civil Chat before, this is your chance to simply ask questions, and Brian will do our best to answer those questions. You can ask questions on anything. We prefer it to be around civil engineering applications that Autodesk has, because that's kind of where my expertise is. But I mean, if you want to ask about the weather, I suppose you can. We'll prioritize the civil stuff first. But yeah. Um, so ask questions. We ask that you put those questions in the Q&A. So the chat is great. Please chat, rib us, make fun of us, have fun, ask, make comments in there. But if you have a question, please make sure you put it in the Q&A. It just makes it a lot easier for us to manage everything and make sure that we've addressed all the questions that come up. If you don't ask questions, then we'll talk about the weather or something, I suppose. But yeah, so I always like to try to start off with a little something. And today I wanted to talk about labels and a setting that a lot of people may not know about and or what it does. So here I've got this label. So it's just a spot elevation label for a surface. And in the top right of it, I've put a little symbol. I don't know what the symbol represents, but it's important for this particular label. And it's important that it be in the top right of this particular text field. Now, there are times when maybe I need to rotate this label over to the other side. So as you can see, when it's over here, that little symbol is in the top right corner. But if I flip it over here, well, it's now down in the bottom left corner. Right? So you can see it's down here. Oops. It's down here instead of up here. But if I rotate it back, it's now back up in the top right. Now, if you watch it as I rotate it, what you'll notice is it doesn't really move. Right? So if I rotate label here, it stays in that same position, but what happens is the text flips. Once I get to 90 degrees, you'll see the text flip, but that symbol doesn't move. And so now it's down in the bottom left corner of the text. Again, as it flips, that text flips, that symbol stays in the same location relative to the original layout of the label. All right, so let me copy this so we can get a couple options of them. And I'll rotate this one back so we can see this, all right? So I don't want this. I want it to always be in the top right corner of this particular label. So how do we do that? Well, that's a setting in the label style. So if I go to the settings tab and I go find my label style, so again, this is a spot elevation, and I just use this civil chat symbol. There's an option in here on the general tab of the label style composer to flip anchors with text. And if I change that to true and then hit OK, you can see that symbol is now up in the top right. So as this rotates, right, you can see as that text flips, the symbol will flip along with it. All right. So now what on earth is an anchor? Well, your text component has 9 different anchor components. It has top left, top center, top. Well, here, let me show you. All right. It has a top left, top center, top right, middle left, middle center, middle right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. And these are the different parts of this particular text component that you can anchor to. Now, as this thing flips, as the text flips, so let me go ahead and rotate this label here. Do these anchors flip with it? So the little red pieces of text, they're just individual text components that I've anchored to those 9 different parts of this elevation label. So as it flips, right, you'll notice that those flip along with it, right? So the top left is still top left. When I bring it over here, the top left is still the top left. And so those are the components that we're talking about that flip. So if I change this civil chat style to flip anchors with text to false, right? As I rotate this now, you'll see that they stay relative to the original location that they were as it comes around. So you can see that the right side is at the very top, and as it flips, it's still at the very top, so they end up over there on the left. So that's what the flip anchors with text does. Now, where are these anchors, these text component, or where are these anchors for this text component? Well, they're at the corners of it, but where are the corners? So if I go edit the style one more time, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the layout for that surface elevation. I'm going to turn on the border visibility. So I'm going to say border visibility, I'm going to set that to true. And so you can see these text components are actually anchored to that border. So if I put a larger gap in this border, so right now the gap is set to a 0.025. If I set it to a 0.2 and then apply that, you'll see that border goes out, but then also those the anchor points go out as well. So when you're dealing with, label styles and you need something to connect to something and you need it to be relative to it when it flips, this is important to understand that flip anchors with text. Right.
You have a follow-up
Again,
question on this. Does flip anchors affect the stacked text as composed option?
So it does sort of, right? So you're talking about the drag state here where it's set to stack text or as composed, right? So if it's set to stack text, it has nothing to do with it, because what this will do, this will take each text component of the label and stack it on top of each other in the order they were created. So if I pull this off, this is going to look really weird, right? But you can see it took each one of those text components and stacked it on top of each other and basically put it into one text component, right? Now, if I had this set to as composed, instead of stacked text to as composed, it's going to leave the label style exactly the way it was as it was composed and put it there. The drawback to this is if I throw it over there on the left side, it's still as composed, right? So what happens if I rotate the label? Let's try to rotate the label. So if I rotate the label, it affects it here, but now my leader is kind of messed up and it's annoying. So what I typically recommend is if you have a label style that you need to be as composed, you need to drag it left and drag it right, then I would make two different label styles. Just make a child style that's set out to look good on the left side. So hopefully that helps with that answer. Did you say there was a couple things, Brian?
That was the only one that's
That was the
follow
only
up in
one.
that one. We do have 3 other questions though.
Excellent. So if anybody has any thoughts, comments on this, I'd love to hear them.
Robert
Looks like
said
the
yes, the answer
chat
is
is fairly mundane today, fairly tame. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's the way it is. So, all right, well, let's get on to our first question.
All right. So our first question is, how can I make a pipe object style to represent a concrete jacket around a pipe? Say 6-inch sewer line with a 6-inch thick concrete jacket. I opened a Civil 3D file with a style for a pipe object that shows AR conch hatching for the jacket around the pipe. The jacket moves automatically with the pipe whenever invert or horizontal geometry is modified. I've tried reading the definition of the style from the style editor, but it doesn't show anything different from the styles without a jacket.
So my guess is that, so I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the jacket, Kyle. Is this just like a coating around the pipe? So you've got a 6-inch diameter pipe with 6 inches of concrete around it? Is that what you got, Kyle? Okay, perfect. He said yes in the chat for those watching later online. So most likely what they did is they just changed the wall thickness of the pipe to have a 6-inch thick wall. Right, and then within the pipe style, if we come down here to our pipe styles, I'll just pick one. In the plan view, it showed both the inside of the pipe walls and the outside walls. Right, so if I toggle both of those on, and then the pipe hatch. right? So it'll hatch between the inside of the pipe walls, the outside of the pipe wall, and then your hatch. And then down below here is the pattern for the hatch. Right? And then, you can come in here and change the pattern of the hatch however you like. Remember that there are different plan views, so you'll probably want to do this in profile as well. Set the inside pipe wall, outside pipe wall, pipe hatch, and then set the hatch down here as well. So that's probably what they're doing. You might have to go into part builder. Oh God, I can't believe I just said that. I'm sorry. You might have to go into part builder and modify the part to include that 6-inch thick wall. To do that, you would just go to part builder, and I'll just use this concrete pipe. All right, and then I'll edit it. And I'm not sure how this particular one is set up. It might not be as, I hate part builder. It's just so counterintuitive to me. Adam says you can edit the part XML directly if you want to avoid part builder. You could do that if you know how. All right, so I'm going to go into here to edit values, and we have the wall thickness. All right, and so this is just a table, the way this is set up now. So each part will get its own wall thickness. If you wanted to, you could come up here to the parameter configuration and change this table to a list. Now, when I do that, what you'll notice is if I come back to the values, they're all now set the same. Whereas my wall thickness is all set to 2. And you would just right click on one of, or you would select one, choose the edit button up here, and then you can add all the thicknesses you want. And then those will be options as you add the parts to your parts list. All right, so that's one option. So back to, I think the easiest way would probably just be to add a new size here. All right, so you can just come down to the very bottom and say, new, and say, hey, this is going to be a 6. Let's maximize these things. It's easier to see. And then my wall thickness would also be 6. And then you could say, hey, for the part serial name, instead of 6-inch RCP, and come in here. That's a calculated value, so I can't change it here, but you could maybe go into calculations and change. Yeah, I hate part builder. So here's the part serial number, and you can see it's the format number plus inch RCP. Can I change it for individual ones, or does it have to change for all of them? It changes them all. Bummer. But so that's probably how they did it. So hopefully that helps, Kyle. I'm not a fan of part builder, if you couldn't tell.
Really?
Yeah. It's so
I
annoying.
never noticed that before.
But like I said, I'm guessing
All right,
that's the way. So here, let me just do a quick pipe in here. Come on.
No, part builder broke here.
Right. I don't know why it takes so long to bring up the pipe network creation tools on my system. No, David, you can't have a 1-hour part builder tour or a tutorial. Let's do some storm drain.
I think if you were to do a 1-hour part builder tutorial, there'd be about 5 minutes of real information and 55 minutes of God, I hate this program.
All right, so there's that pipe. This is a big pipe. It doesn't have any walls on it. So if we go edit the style, right, we can say, hey, I want to display the inside, the outside, and the pipe hatch. And if I just hit OK now, you can see how we've got that hatch. And if this was a 6-inch pipe with that 6-inch thickness, it would think what you want. This is the over under on curse words during it.
I like Adam. I'm just going to come with an hour next month worth of questions on part builder.
Do you know how to ban somebody from Zoom meetings?
How to kick them out, and if you kick them out, you can't join that session. But since this is a recurring session, I'm not sure how that works.
Right. I try not to swear too much.
Corey's saying infrastructure parts editor too.
Um, yeah, that works. Um, I think that I've tried playing around with that, and it's just I don't know. I don't know why they have to get so complicated with parts in Civil 3D. It's like I'm not trying to model a manhole. I just want something that represents my manhole.
No,
Right?
you
I'm
need to
not
model
trying to
that.
model the grate on my inlet. I just need something that represents my inlet. And then I can say it has this grate. I'm not trying to model the inside drop of a drop. Man, it's just, I don't get it. Why do we have to model this stuff so detailed? All I want is a pipe with a wall thickness.
The
That's
reason
it.
you have to model all that is because the LOD forum said, or the BIM forum came out with LOD standards that says we've got to model things to unrealistic expectations.
It's ridiculous. Put in a symbol that says this is a 4-foot manhole, and then go reference the detail sheet for the 4-foot manhole. I don't get it.
I completely agree.
It annoys
All
me.
right.
I was talking with somebody today, who was having issues with a really large surface. And I'm like, back when I started doing civil engineering, we didn't have LiDAR. We didn't have point clouds, right? We didn't have any of this stuff. We would send surveyors out and they would gather for a site this large, 1,000 points. And that was plenty. I didn't need more than that to do my design. You have 64 million points in this surface. Why? How does
Because
that help you do a better design?
because it's windy today and some of that dirt might have shifted, so we need to know it
Exactly.
from yesterday to today.
I don't need the indentation of somebody's footprint on the dirt. So,
All right, so Owen has a question. When we
okay.
cut plan and profile sheets, we allow 10 per drawing. In 24, the layout tabs are at the bottom, are not in order. Do you see this behavior also? It puts the first two tabs at the end, if that makes sense.
I've not seen that. Let's go open up one of the tutorial files for this.
Jennifer saying hers does that as well.
All right, so let's go create some view frames here. Robert's getting the same thing. All right. Very interesting. Uh, let's throw this here. So we'll go to the output tab, create view frames. I don't remember the name of the road. It is Maple Road. Uh, not sections. I'll do these at a 40 scale. Maybe we'll do these at a 20 scale. Just so I can get more of them on here. View frame groups, we'll delete that. I wish you could just go back and modify these. Anybody knows that if I missed something in the last few releases, let me know. All right, so there we go. So now we'll create the sheets. Are you doing them in the current drawing? Or are you doing them in a new drawing? You said 10 per drawing, right? So the number of layouts per drawing. How many do I have in this drawing? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll do, I don't know, 6 per drawing. Whatever.
Jennifer says it happens to them when they do a new drawing.
Okay, that's what I'm doing. Away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for me. But I didn't have 10. And I just did this out of the tutorial files.
And he also said the layout tabs at the bottom. Can you
Yeah.
move your layout tabs to the bottom? Oh, those ones.
Yeah, these things down here. So you can see for me, it did it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I'm in 25 as well. You said 24.
I suspect it's over when you get over 10.
All right, all right. Let's try it with over 10.
Oh, she thinks it's because you're getting sheet 1, sheet 10, sheet 2.
Oh, that very well could be. Let's go check that out.
So you would get 10, 11, 12, 13 before sheet 2.
Yeah.
That is so very frustrating. Revit, we have that same issue, so I'm always labeling everything 0, 1, 0, 2. And hope to God I don't get over 99.
Sheets. 10. Where'd I go? Not open, not new. I want to open.
And no one said he does it in the current drawing, not a new drawing.
All right. Okay, so since I already did it for the first 8, so it's starting at 9, which is not going to help us.
Yeah, but you see sheet 9's at the end.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. So actually it does. So yeah, that makes sense. So it's the alphabetical is what it's doing. It's not doing it numerically, it's doing it alphabetically. So 1 comes before 9 alphabetically, so that's why sheet 10 and everything else is before sheet 9. So yeah, so if I were to only create 10 sheets, it would go sheet 1, then sheet 10, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, that's very likely what it is. So, I don't know how to use leading zeros in this, because it numbered those for me automatically. Is there now there is the naming thing, so if I come up here and I create sheets, there's that naming template. But it's just next counter. Yo, you could do it right there. Look at that. All right, let me close this. I'm going to start brand fresh new. Get rid of all this stuff. Open that civil drawing, that tutorial drawing again. Do a save as with a different name so we're not messing anything up. And we'll call this one numbering. Changing my scale to a 1 inch equals. So if you've noticed, I'm changing my scales before I'm creating the sheets. This isn't necessary, it's just helpful. Especially if you're doing like the section sheets, it just makes life a lot easier. Change your scale to what scale you're going to be using and then proceed from there. We'll create the view frames. 1 and 10, good. I think everything else was fine. Create the view frames, and then when we go create the sheets, down here on the layout name, we can go into the naming template. All right, so we edit the layout name. Now I'm going to get rid of this next counter here. And I'm going to put in a new next counter, but I'm going to have it be the 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. If you have over 100, you might want to do 0, 0, 1, right? Starting number, increment number, and then I will insert that in. So it's sheet, next counter. Right. And now when I create the sheets, make sure I did that correctly. I want to do number of layouts per new drawing. We'll do 10. Looks good. And we'll create the sheets, save it, pick a point, creates the sheets. And it didn't like that. Let me close the sheet chat again. Open. Yep, there you go. Good call to whoever mentioned the, but it only did
It was
9.
Jennifer.
Good call, Jennifer. Well done. Yep. So now you can see they're in order down here. So awesome.
That's probably not a 2024 thing. It's probably been that for a while.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Chris, let me make sure there's nothing. Nope. So Chris had a question, unrelated, clipping viewport ports. I remember issues with these in the past with printing. Currently dealing with an issue where PDFs look fine, but paper prints show alignment curve labels and part of the alignment, guessing it goes out the end of the curve being labeled outside the clipping viewport. Select the area in the PDF and you can see it registering content in that area, but doesn't show it.
I'm not familiar with that one. Well, let's see if we can replicate it.
I remember that issue as well way back when I used to do AutoCAD often back in AutoCAD like 2003 and 4, where yeah, we used a tremendous amount of clipping viewports. And if there were things inside of there, we had sometimes it would print, sometimes it wouldn't. Very wonkiness going on with that.
All right. So for whatever reason, that's the area I want to clip. So as you can see, actually, let me do it this way to put that tick mark outside of it. And then we'll clip this viewport. Been a while since that. Just do the command VP clip. Clip to that viewport there. And then we'll plot this. All right. It is coming up on my other screen, of course. And it's behind all my, okay. There we go. Okay, so here it is. So in the PDF, it looks fine.
I did say when you hovered over it, you could see it like extending past it.
How come I can't? I've minimized my Q&A now. I can't see my Q&A. Give me a second. There we go. Okay, sorry. If I do like a text select, I'm not getting anything here. It's because it's SHX fonts most likely. I hate SHX fonts. Yeah, it's registering that. I'm not getting anything in this area. Like I said, I probably should have done this with the. All right, let me replot this here again real quick. I hate SHX fonts.
And Kyle said he remembered something similar, but it was oftentimes when people used a masking region to hide viewports, and the print function in the PDF didn't always respect the mask.
right? And so that should be all of them. Why are you still not? Oh, you're an XREF. Yeah, you're an XREF, duh. Now, Robert mentioned in the chat that the different PC3 also results in differences. That might be what it is.
And then the other thing that I also always suggest too is when you're printing a PDF, if you start having issues, and it's not issues in the PDF, it's issues with the live print, is what you said. But I always say, and Brian Haley and I, way back in our previous lives, and we worked together, we had an IT guy who would always default to using a program called Qt PDF, CUTE PDF. It's a free program you can download, and it's one of the most basic PDF printers out there. It doesn't try to do anything fancy. So whenever somebody's like, I'm having issues with a PDF, I always say, hey, try printing to that and see if you still have those issues.
Yeah. Oh, and if you're working in review, when you plot out a CAD and you see this little thing that says this document contains say yes. Just do. It's not going to hurt anything, and it'll keep it from popping up again. All right. So if we go to our select text, you can see I can select that label there that was in the viewport. And is there something outside of it that I can select over here? There is not. So I'm not able to replicate it. So I'm not sure how to go about doing it.
Oh,
I
so
don't
it's
know.
basically when they're printing from the PDFs, which appear fine,
Yeah.
to
Yeah, but he said you could
yeah.
somehow access it over here. And the only way I know would be to select the text. And you can see it's selecting this text here, it's selecting this text down here, but it's not selecting that other label that is over here. So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't have an answer for you on that one, Chris. I'm
well,
sorry.
Chris said in the comments, it happens when you printing from Bluebeam, not Adobe. Since Bluebeam ties into the CAD stuff, it does things like that often because it's trying to maintain a lot of the intelligence,
Yeah.
understanding this is a line, a curve, whatever. So oftentimes like that, you can also go into Bluebeam and try to flatten that PDF and then see if that print works. Because basically you're saying remove all of the intelligence and just give me, images to print, and it will do it a little bit better. So
Yeah.
that would be my other thought is like, hey, if they're in, Bluebeam trying to print from there, and that's all they have as an option. You could also probably open the Windows-based PDF viewer, but try that because Bluebeam tries to make things too smart, which yes, I see a ton of issues with Bluebeam because of that.
Yeah. And so here at GEI, we default to the DWG to PDF. So maybe try that PC3 file instead of the Bluebeam one. That might also work for you. But yeah. So here's an interesting one. So this particular template, unbeknownst to me, and I'm going to have to go fix this now, actually had a viewport that went all the way around both of these other viewports. And I'm currently in this viewport. How do I switch over to one of these other viewports?
You
Did anybody
delete the
ever
large
find themselves in this
viewport.
situation?
You delete the large viewport you don't need.
Right, but let's pretend I did need it. All right, so Control R will cycle you through all of your viewports. So I'm just holding down the Control key and then tapping R. So that'll cycle you through your viewports. That's just a nice little tip there to have if you ever find yourself needing it. All right, what else we got? We got a whole list of them here. This is awesome.
Yeah, you're getting people to pop in. We're gonna have to start going faster on these now. Can you show us how you label a plan and profile for SD line system that you have designed? Could you walk us through the labeling process?
Sean, I assume SD is a storm drain?
No, it's a schematic design drawing. Come on.
I don't want to answer the wrong question. Sean, you around still? Oh, he put it down in the chat, or in the Q&A rather than the chat. Oh, yes, storm drain. Okay. Um, So it labeling it, well, that all depends upon your municipality. Some municipalities require things to be labeled a certain way, other ones require them to be labeled differently. So you got to figure out how they want it to be done. Now, so I'm not going to be here to show you how we do it necessarily. If I think what would be better is if you had an idea of how you want it to be labeled, I could then show you how to do it that way, right? I don't do a whole lot of design anymore, so I'm not involved in that side a whole lot. Let's see. So the way we have, those are pipe styles. Let's go to our label styles, plan and profile. So we've got our setup, our label style set up for design. So you can see we have design, survey, and so, you know, they have the different text styles, so they look differently in the profile views. But then, like, for example, this LDMS. So if I double click on this, so this is for the plan view. Come over here to the general, our information. You can see LDMS is the length, diameter, material, and slope. And so that's what this particular label style will display. If I expand it out, you can see we've got child styles under there with different ones. So for example, we have just the length, the diameter, and the material. Here we have the length, diameter, material, type, and slope. Here we have it, so it's drag aligned options, and then just the type only. All right.
And John's response was label, pipe, and structures on plan and profile.
Say again?
He said label, pipe, and structures on plan and profile.
Yeah. So you would just need to figure out how you want it to look and then figure out the style that you want for that. All right. And so I've seen lots and lots of different ways of doing it. I've seen people label directly on the pipe itself. I've seen people label it down in the bands. I've seen people label it along the top with arrows. It all depends upon what it is you're trying to display, right? But this is the way we've got our setup. And then we also have them for profile. So we have different types for profile as well. So if I go into one of our styles here, the way we have it set up here at GEI, on the layout tab here, go ahead and make this a bit bigger. All right, you can see our anchor component is the feature, and we're anchoring it to the bottom inner diameter. So we actually label our pipes on the pipe itself, not down at the bottom of the view or the top of the view. So it's just a label style. There's really nothing special about it if you're doing it this way. But one thing to note is you can, there are other anchor points. So you just gotta, so when we're talking about creating different label styles, what I recommend is sketch it out on a piece of paper and figure out, I want this thing connected to this. Now, how do I get it there? Right? So there's lots of different ways of getting things to the different parts. And so you got to figure that out. So hopefully that helps. I know it wasn't a direct answer, Sean, but hopefully it helped out.
All right, we're gonna do a question from Christopher. Any ideas for labeling blocks using property set data? I am using property sets for some GIS workflows, but Civil 3D doesn't seem to allow access to the data in MText or MLeaders. Civil 3D labels work great on Civil 3D objects, but I haven't found a way to use them on blocks.
I don't know if there is a way to get property set data out of a block into a label. Christopher. Because as far as I know, the only place we can put property set data is into a label. And so you'd have to have a label style for that type of object with the property set data information in it. And we don't have a label style for blocks. We have them for points, but not for blocks. I don't know of any way you can get that out of there.
Mike's
So
asking, can you use a focal point instead of a block?
Yeah, you could do that, but that kind of defeats the purpose of just having blocks that you want to take into GIS. Is there a way to convert the property set data into object data? I know Map 3D has the ability to label object data, but I don't know if they have access to the property set data. I don't think they do.
Note label with a reference, question mark?
Can you reference a block? I don't think you can. So yeah, I like where you're going with that. So if I go create a label style for a note, I'll just go create a new one here. So if I go to the layout, I can create a reference text, but then I have to choose what type of object I want to reference, and block's not an option here. So I don't
Ryan
think that
says
would
you can
work.
define tags, custom blocks that pull data from the property set data and create two-way links to that data on an object.
Yeah, you lost me on that one, Adam.
I asked this question because this one is very much I want to know because in more and more projects, we're
Mhm.
getting building owners saying you need to add all of this data for our facilities people on this stuff,
Right,
right? We want all that data. So yes, obviously it's property set definition, but how do you also display that data on screen?
right. So like I said, if it is um, object data, which is the old map 3D way of assigning data to objects, which is how we can assign object data to a block. Within it, you can come up here to the annotate and you can define a template, and then you can label all of the objects and using the map annotation here. It's not something I'm super familiar with. I do know it's there, um, but I don't know how to get that in, convert the property set data into object data.
Yeah, Owen and Christopher are saying Dynamo, but obviously it's not dynamic.
Right.
Adam changed it. He contributed. He said define tag command. You need the text and line work you want your tag to use. It then converts that to a block with attributes and adds info to the attribute to a link to the PSD.
Yeah. And let me just pull this over so people that are watching the webinar later can actually read
I
it.
don't. We don't actually get to see that.
You don't get to see that.
Zoom doesn't show it to in chat.
All right. I've got a way of doing that then. Let's see. Let's put you there. Take a screenshot of it. There we go. So this was the comment from Adam. So for people that are watching this later, or this is what Adam was saying. So you can now take your own screenshot of that and then go figure out, translate that into English. So
Christopher says thanks. He'll give that a try. He says he uses CTC's Label Genie and it works okay.
okay. So CTC is an add-on program, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So
Which I forget. I was going to say done originally by CTC, but they've been acquired twice, so I don't know who owns them anymore. Just look
yeah.
for CTC Civil Tools, and you will see them come up.
Civil 3D got shifted over my other screen, and now my Zoom controls are on top of it, and I can't move it. Come on. There we go.
And Randy says you can also use the Style Manager within the defined property sets in the Manage ribbon to add attribute data. But I still don't think that allows you to label it, correct?
I don't think so. Where was that one? I also use the style manager within the defined property sets and the manager and yeah, I don't know how to get any of this information into a label. Because again, there are no Civil 3D labels that can label an AutoCAD object or can label a block. All right, we can label lines, but nothing that I'm aware of will label a block. So.
And Adam's follow-up says the tags are technically multi-view blocks. I think it's an old command from the AutoCAD MEP toolset they left in Civil 3D.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that comes from either from the MEP days or the AutoCAD architecture days.
Right. Kind of like these AEC modified tools that
I
are left over from AutoCAD
I miss
architecture.
those tools. Those tools were really, really, really great. And switching to the Revit world, I really miss having those tools.
All right. I think we beat that one enough. What we got next?
All right. From Kevin, do you speaking of standards, do you put company standards on a network share or point Civil 3D to a network location? Or do those company standards to a local folder and point Civil 3D to that local folder? And I know we're running out of time, so Brian has addressed this several times on previous
Yeah,
Civil chat. So,
it's a great topic. Let me cover it real quick. So under the files under our support file support path, you can see everything is gone to our C drive. So we have a CCAD support. And then what we have is when we launch Civil 3D, so let me go to my desktop here. All right, we have a custom launcher. So once this opens up. All right, so I have a shortcut here, and this is not going to Civil 3D. And so we actually hired an Autodesk reseller to set this up for us. And so they had a custom little program, but you can just do this with a basic RoboCopy. So what you would do in the properties is you would set this to run a BAT file that runs a RoboCopy that syncs the network files to the local drive if it can find that network drive, and then launch the program. So that's the way we do it here.
yeah, and John Martin and David say, but they're basically same thing, network folder that gets synced at computer startup or Civil 3D.
Yeah, we do it at Civil 3D launch. So
yeah, I have one client who does a lot of stuff when the computer turns on every time, and all the users get upset because it takes about 10, 15 minutes for their computer actually turn on. It's because they're running so many. Oh, if this has changed, copy that. If this has changed, copy that. And Kevin, this has been discussed multiple times. So if you want to go back to some previous civil chats, and I know the other Brian goes into because his company does it slightly different, same idea but slightly different, and goes through that as well.
yeah, one of the advantages of doing it at startup is if somebody's like, "Hey, this isn't working," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I messed that up. Quick, let me change it, save it up to the network." I'm like, "Okay, close out of Civil 3D, launch it again. Now it's fixed." So that's one of the advantages of doing it at program startup.
Yeah, and the fourth Brian did an AU class, which is put into the chat in here as well.
I'll take a screenshot of
Brian
that
Ladowski
for
at
the
AU. So if you want to look at it, look for the AU 2019.
yeah. So for people that are watching after the fact, that was the link that was put in there. So make sure you don't
We got
mistype anything.
one more actual Civil 3D question and a few
Okay.
more just opinion questions. So we'll do the Civil 3D one. Point elevation rounding does not always round normal as listed in the editor. If I have a 0.65, it can round to 6, i.e. rounded down. And rounding change at the 0.5 does not always round up.
That's a great question, Robert. All right. So let me create some points here.
Is it the fact that the 0.65 is actually 0.6444444444499999
All
versus
right,
0.5?
so let's see. There's a description. My elevation will be a 123.4 0.45, and this will be 123.55. All right, let's go ahead and label these bad boys. Let's see prospector point groups. That's point style. We want a label style. All right, so you can see 123.45 and 123.55. Now, what happens if I change this label style so a precision of just 1/10 of a foot? Well, this should be 123.5 and this should be 123.6, right? Everybody says, of course, Brian, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. All right, so if I go to point, label styles, and which one did I use? I think I used this one here. I'm going to go to elevation. Change that precision out to the 1/10 of a foot. Hit this silly little unlabeled white arrow. And I must have done the other one. Knew that was going to happen.
Of course. Okay, we get to see you do it twice in case we missed it the first time.
Right? Elevation. Okay, what the hell style did I use for these? Let's just edit it right here. That way there's no question. Elevation. This is what I get for trying to go too fast. And you can see this one rounds to 123.4, and this one rounds to 123.6. So I think this is what you're getting to there, Robert, right? Why did the 0.05 round down to the 0.4, but up to the 0.6? Well, this is the way rounding works. The way we were taught rounding in school, elementary school, is wrong. So, and the reason is so 0.5, let's say we're rounding to the nearest whole number, and I've got a, 1 point, something that ends with a 0.5. That is exactly halfway between the number above it and the number below it. So half of the time it should go up, and half of the time it should go down. And so this is known as a counting rounding, because if we always round up, then you have an error towards that side. And so instead of always a 5 rounding up, a 5 rounds to the nearest even number. So you can see it, 123.45 rounded down to a 4, because that's the nearest even number, whereas a 123.55 rounded up to a 0.6, because that's the nearest even number. So that's how rounding works in Civil 3D. It's not a bug, it's not a mistake, that's just the way it does it. So hopefully that helps, Robert.
And if you ask an accountant on how you do rounding, it's completely different. All right, so we got a couple opinion questions in here. I'm looking to take a career break. Do any jobs exist where one can use Civil 3D/AutoCAD knowledge, but doesn't require them to be on the front line of the construction industry? I heard Autodesk is hiring. You might get a job there. Is that too soon? Sorry.
Too soon. Way too soon. For those of you that may not know, Autodesk is going through layoffs right now.
9% of their workforce.
You do something like what I'm doing. I'm a CAD manager. I used to work for an Autodesk reseller. I absolutely loved it. I had a great time. I learned a shit ton. There's the swearing for today. I got to meet some great people. I got to travel around, visit different companies, see how things are done all over the place. It was a fantastic career choice for me. It is not for everybody, because you have to be able to get up in front of people and talk, kind of like what I'm doing right now. If you have that fear of public speaking, it may not be the job for you. But I absolutely loved it. CAD manager job, I enjoy it. In my career here, I don't have to deal with contractors that swear at me for things that they should know better than. But yeah, so those are a couple of jobs. I'm sure other folks will put stuff in the chat as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for me, going to the Autodesk reseller, because I was kind of at the same boat. I was using AutoCAD, working for architects, and it was like, man, I got the Autodesk reseller. I loved it. Like Brian, we worked at the same company. We had a boss that let us just learn a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say is, yeah, somebody just put it in there. Is like, look at going to community college to try to train. I know a lot of people just they enjoy the aspects of sharing their knowledge at a community college as an instructor or whatever, like doing that. The other thing is there's also a ton of companies out there that just need people to like do drafting. And it's kind of weird to me. Like there are a lot of, like firms who like Starbucks has people internally who lay out things first before they give it to the architects to officially do it. So if you can find one of those niche jobs where you're helping with the layout and the knowledge of that prior to it actually going out for construction or whatever, it becomes a little nicer in my mind.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, somebody mentioned the theaters use AutoCAD for laying out stages, FEMA, Forest Service, National Parks, Social Security. Yeah.
Oh.
So there's quite a few options there.
John asked the question, does anyone have a multi-button mouse they use with macros frequently, use commands? Any good ones to share?
So I have a button, it's not, there's a couple of buttons there. I just use the defaults forward and back. So this third button just lets me pair it with multiple things. So I have 2 side buttons. I just use it for forward and back. I don't have it set up to do anything in CAD. I just use a standard 3-button mouse in CAD. But like for example, if I'm in File Explorer, I can hit the back button. If I go over here, I can hit the back button and it'll take me back to the previous spot I was, or go forward. So those are the only 2 buttons that I use.
For For me,
but I
I
know
have
there are mice that have like 9 side buttons on them.
yeah, I was
Right,
gonna
but
say
they'd
I've
like
seen
to
people in the
digitize the
AutoCAD
pad at that
world set
point.
up for like escape or delete, two things you're hitting on the keyboard often. I personally have shift and control in my CAD platforms because I like having the shift and control, especially like even selecting multiple things in Windows Explorer. Yeah, I think it's preference. And there are some of the more customized ones where literally you can like create an entire macro and add it to your button. So I just
Yeah.
think that's always personal preferences. I don't know. Does anybody else here have specific for Civil 3D?
Yeah, Chris says he uses the forward and back buttons for escape and delete. I can see that for sure.
But then you wear out the button on your mouse as opposed to the ESC letters on your keyboard. How do you know somebody's an AutoCAD drafter and you walk in the office? There's no escape on their key, and half the
Yeah.
times the F1 popped off the keyboard.
How do you pound the escape key on a side button on your mouse?
Well, you just wear it off, right? You just
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's
exactly.
so nice just to, constantly go on that key. And then of course I hit the F1 key accidentally.
Yeah, that's why I remember old school days when people would actually remove the F1 button from their key, so their old keyboard
Yeah.
would pop it off so you couldn't accidentally hit F1 when you're trying.
I saw somebody took a water bottle lid and put it on top of the escape key, prevent him from hitting. I think the most diabolical one I ever saw, somebody took a thumbtack and taped it pointy side up on the escape key to train himself not to hit it when he's on the F1 key to train himself not to hit it when he'd go hit escape. I would have a bloody keyboard. At least my keyboard now has a nice little space between F1 and escape. So
Yeah,
that's helpful. You don't see that on laptops though. So if you're typing on a laptop, you're not going to see that.
Thomas is
So,
saying, why is the escape bad?
I have no idea. I've never heard
Because if
anybody
you're
say
in a
escape.
dialog box and you haven't hit apply before you hit the escape key,
There's
you're
the spot.
canceling out of the dialog box.
Yeah.
And one last question just popped up on a multi-leader on a multi-leader with multiple leaders. Is there a way to have different arrowheads on each leader?
Yes, there is. So let me go ahead and create a multi-leader here real quick. And we'll add a new leader. And one of these I want to be red and spliny and an integral, and the other one I just want to be white like it is. All right. So if I select that arrow and I go to my properties, I can change it, but it changes for both of them. So in essence, what I want to do is I want to select just one of those arrows. And so the way we do this is toggling on our sub entity selection. This works for lots of things. So I hold down the control key and then I select the arrow, and you can see I've got just that one selected. And now I can go into my properties and make any changes I want. So I want this one to be splined. I want it to be red, and I want it to be an integral. And there you go. So hold down your control key, select it, and then go into your properties. And this works for all sorts of different things, right?
So I'm hearing a left button on the mouse, a control, so you could.
Yeah, so if I have a polyline, right, and I want to erase just these 2 lines here, right, rather than using the trim command or exploding it and then rejoining it, right, you can just excuse me, you can just hold down the control key, select just those 2 lines, and then hit delete on your keyboard, and then you're left with 2 polylines. All right. This also works on Civil 3D stuff as well. So if I come in here and I create an alignment with some nice curves on it, and I realize, hey, I don't want this label. If I select the label and delete, it deletes them all. But if I hold down the control key, I can delete just that one label. I can also hold down the control key, select the curve, and delete the curve off the alignment. So the control key toggles on your sub entity selection. It's fantastic. I love it.
And it should be your left mouse button. And that is it. Perfect timing, bottom of the hour.
Great.
We are done. Exactly 1 hour in.
Nice. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. So we'll be here again next month, first Tuesday of April. So I wonder if that's April 1st. That'd be cool.
It is April 1st. I looked. We will be
Oh,
on
oh God, I got to play something in. Yeah. Right. So we'll see y'all next month. Bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring your parents. More people, the merrier. Yeah, and we'll see you there. I will be posting this up on my YouTube channel if you want to come back and review it. And until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.